हेलो एवरीवन, हाउ आर यू गाइस डूइंग? कैसे हैं सब लोग? सो स्टडिंग वेल? मई 2024 एग्जाम जस्ट राउंड द कॉर्नर। 3 महीने से थोड़ा ज़्यादा टाइम है अपने पास। नाउ दिस वीडियो इज स्पेशली फॉर May 2024 students who are appearing the CA intermediate exams, and more importantly for all those November 2023 students who unfortunately could not clear, and now you have to study the subject of direct tax again, but as per a new budget, as per Finance Act 2023. So in this video what I intend to do is I want to discuss all the amendments relating to Finance Act 2023 that are applicable to CA intermediate students. But then rather than just going through the amendments, mentioning it very quickly, what I'm also wanting to do is discuss small examples for the amendments. And I know time is precious for you guys, so I will not get into a full-fledged lengthy discussion of each and every amendment. I want to make this video effective also, but at the same time efficient also when it comes to time. There are 4 major amendments. All the other amendments are very simple, very small to tackle. There are 4 major amendments as per Finance Act 2023. One, section 115BAC, super duper huge amendment. You can predict either in MCQs or in descriptive questions. You will definitely have this section 115BAC in your paper. Second amendment is relating to life insurance premium. Third amendment is an important amendment related to salaries, valuation of perquisite of rent-free accommodation, and the fourth important one is the amendment in the chapter of TDS and TCS. Apart from these, whatever amendments are there, they are very small, very simple to tackle. Chalo, let's dive deep into this. In the description box of in the description of this video, you will find the PDF of this amendment ka list. You will also find a PDF where these examples that I'm going to discuss in the video will be there, and एक दो example I will be doing from the statutory update. Statutory update तो you will get it from the institute's website, but I'll still put it up in the video in the description. अगर institute website से नहीं मिल पाया तो या यहीं से download कर लो, you can straight away do it from here. चलो, let's not waste any further time. Let's dive deep into it. First amendment, the big amendment, section 115BAC. Now all of you know what section 115BAC is. They are concessional slab rates, but then the drawback is that many deductions and exemptions that are normally allowed to you are not going to be available when you pay tax as per 115BAC. Highlighting the changes. What are the changes that have come about in 115BAC? 115BAC was introduced in 2020's budget. What are the changes? Change number 1. 115BAC is now applicable to artificial juridical person, association of persons and body of individuals also. Earlier it was only applicable to individual and HUF. Now it applies to everybody who is supposed to pay tax according to slab rates. Slab rates that are there as per 115BAC, they have also undergone a change. November 2023 students, you might remember studying the old 115BAC where each slab was 2.5 lakh rupees. Now that has changed. Each slab is of 3 lakh rupees. Every time you go to the next slab, your percentage increases by 5%. So 0, 5%, 10%, 15%. After 20%, there is directly to 30%, 25% is not there. So each slab increases by 3 lakh rupees. The rate increases by 5%. So if you pay tax as per 115BAC, 0 to 3 lakhs, no tax. 3 lakhs to 6 lakhs, you will pay 5%, that is 15,000. 6 lakhs to 9 lakhs, you will pay 10%, that is 30,000. So aggregating to 45,000. ये accumulative tax का column I have prepared so that a student can remember the thresholds. It will help him or her to calculate tax faster, especially in MCQs. Like for example, if you are told that the income is 8 lakh rupees, so you know up to 6 lakhs the tax is 15,000, and then 6 lakhs to 8 lakhs, वो 2 lakhs pay 10%, that is 20,000. 20,000 plus 15,000 is 35,000. का टैक्स. If you find this method suitable, go ahead for it. या फिर if you want to go for the normal method that we always follow, each slab is worth 3 lakhs, 5, 10, 15, 20 and then 20 के बाद सीधा 30%, whichever suits you. You can follow any of those methods. Basically, you should be able to calculate the right amount of tax. So the amendment is that the slab rates have changed. The next big amendment, 115 BAC is now my default tax regime. 115 BAC is the default tax regime. Earlier, the budget tax rates were default. 115 BAC was the option. Now 115 BAC is the default regime. To make the default regime a little bit more attractive, I mean to make section 115 BAC a little bit more attractive, they've also introduced some 2-3 changes which I'll discuss in about 2-3 minutes. But now that means कि if 115 BAC is the default regime, तुम्हारे क्वेश्चन में if nothing is mentioned, you have to apply 115 BAC when it comes to computation of income, when it comes to computation of tax. By default, section 115 BAC will apply. If the examiner wants you to apply the budget tax rates, if he wants you to apply the tax rates as per Finance Act 2023, then he will specifically mention it in the question. Going for Finance Act 2023 means you are opting out of the default tax regime. The slab rates announced by section 11, the slab rates announced by Finance Act 2023 are now called as the opt-out regime. If the examiner wants you, then he will mention opt-out. The third type of a question that could be possible is, this can happen especially in MCQ, where they might say, what is the tax liability of this individual, of this HUF? Assuming, they'll put these words, assuming they want to maximize their tax savings. So if it is assuming that they want to maximize their tax savings, now you'll have to calculate both the taxes as per the default regime, section 115 BAC, as per the opt-out regime, as per the budget. This will become a little bit of a lengthy question, especially for an MCQ, but then this is what you'll have to keep in mind. Agar the wordings used are assuming they want to maximize their tax savings. If nothing is mentioned, 115 BAC follow karo. If the examiner wants you to not follow 115 BAC, he will use the words opt-out. And if he uses the word maximize tax savings, so you have no choice. You'll have to work out both the options and then select whichever is beneficial to the assessee, whichever gives you lower tax liability. If you want to opt out, then you can do that by filing a return of income under section 139(1). Now that means if you are filing a return under 139(1), it has to be a timely return. In other words, if you want to opt out of the default regime and pay tax as per the budget rates, belated return nahi chalega. You cannot select this option. I mean, you cannot opt out in a belated return. You have to file a return timely. The consequences are, if you opt out and if your gross total income has PGBP income, if you are an assessee who is doing business or profession activity, then opt-out option will apply to that year and subsequent years. Then it will always be opted out. You cannot come back to the default regime. If you are not having PGBP, if you are having salary, house property, capital gain and IFOS, any one of these four do not have PGBP, so every year you have an alternative of either paying tax as per default or opt-out. Acha, suppose somebody is having PGBP option, suppose somebody is having PGBP income, and you have opted out of the default regime. Now you want to withdraw your option, so you want to come back to default. तो ये possible है, but you can do it only once. You can once withdraw your opt-out option and come back to the default. Then by default, every year it will be section 115 BAC only. The assessee cannot use the opt-out option once again, and you will every year have to pay tax as per 115 BAC. Future may, suppose the assessee discontinues his business, so he will fall in the second category as we saw above. then every year he will have an option of either 115 BAC or the budget rates. So to summarize this point very quickly, PGBP guys, if you want to opt out, you can opt out, but then it will apply to that year and subsequent years also. Non-PGBP guys, every year you get an option to choose default scheme or opt out scheme. If you are having PGBP, you opted out, then it is going to apply every year, budget rates will apply every year. Once you will be given the alternative of coming back to default, then when you come back to default, every year thereafter you will have to pay tax as per default only. You cannot opt out again for the second time. As a PGBP guy, later on if you discontinue your business, then you again fall in the non-PGBP category. Then you have a yearly choice, default या opt out. Next big amendment, and yes, this is something of a difficult amendment. ध्यान देना please. If you are paying tax as per the opt out regime, no change. You know the rebate provisions. If your total income is up to 5 lakhs, you get a maximum rebate of 12,500. If your total income exceeds 5 lakh rupees, then of course there is no rebate. You will have to pay the full amount of your tax. There is no change here. There is no amendment. The amendment comes up here. If you are paying tax as per the default regime, then first thing that they have done is they have increased the threshold from 5 lakhs to 7 lakhs. So now what will happen is that if you are paying tax as per the default regime, total income up to 7 lakhs, basic tax or maximum 25,000, whichever is less. If you calculate your tax as per default regime, 0 to 3 lakhs, koi tax nahi. 3 lakhs to 6 lakhs at the rate of 5%, this will be 15,000. And 6 lakhs to 7 lakhs, 1 lakh ki income pay at the rate of 10%, this will be 10,000. So your income tax works out to 25,000, and that is your maximum rebate of 25,000. But if your total income exceeds 7 lakhs, as per the opt out, if it exceeded 5 lakhs, no rebate. But as per the default, they are giving you a rebate. 5 minutes ago I said that they are trying to make the default regime a little bit more attractive. This is one thing that they have done. This is the first thing that they've done. They are saying, find out the tax on your total income. Please just pay attention to this. This is a little bit difficult to absorb. Find out the tax on your total income. Now we all know that our total income right now is greater than 7 lakh rupees. Find out the tax as per 115 BAC. Then take a difference of your total income and 7 lakhs. Total income and 7 lakhs ka gap. Find out that gap. So this bracket that I have drawn, I am using a word extra income. What I am trying to put into your minds is, this is the income that I have earned extra, additional, over and above 7 lakhs. तो वो extra income find out करो. If your tax that you are paying on your total income is greater than the extra income, then take a difference of the two and that is your rebate. So this is where the confusion arises a little bit. Look at the examples. The example might help you. See, under the opt-out regime meaning I am paying tax as per the Finance Act. There is no amendment, there is no change. 5 lakh rupees का मेरा threshold है. Income of 3 lakh 60, I will get a rebate. Income exactly of 5 lakhs, I will get a rebate. Income of 5 lakh 10,000, no rebate, pay the full tax. All these calculations are excluding health and education cess. But now when you decide to pay tax under the default regime, case 1, very simple. In fact, case 1 and case 2 both are simple. I earn a total income. Of course, this total income that I am talking about is computed as per section 115 BAC subsection 1A, which means those exemptions and deductions that are prohibited, imagine karo, they are not taken. The total income is 3,60,000. First 3 lakhs, no tax, 60,000 पे 5%, तो ये आया 3,000. The income is up to 7 lakh rupees, nothing to worry. 3,000 maximum तो is 25,000, तो full amount allowed as a rebate. So then no tax is payable. That's not a problem. Even case 2 is not a problem. 7 lakhs pay, we just calculated on the previous page. 7 lakhs pay, the tax works out to 25,000. In fact, it is here. Have a look. 7 lakhs pay, my tax works out to 25,000. So basic tax 25,000. Maximum rebate possible 25,000. Rebate taken, tax payable 0. Now comes case 3. Now this is where it becomes a little bit tricky to understand. First, let us just blindly apply how the section works. Total income 7,10,000. On 7,10,000, let us calculate our tax. So on 7,10,000, my tax will work out to 26,000. कैसे? 0 to 3 lakhs, no tax. Then from 3 lakhs to 6 lakhs, 15,000. 3 lakh की income पर 5%. And then from 6 lakhs to 7,10,000. On that 1,10,000 per 10% will give me 11,000 ka tax. So my tax is 26,000. Okay, so case number 3, tax works out to 26,000. Now, if the tax is 26,000, how do I calculate my rebate? Find out how much income did I earn above 7 lakhs. Keep your eyes on the screen. Find out the extra income, that is the income above 7 lakhs. Case number 3, that is 10,000. If my tax 26,000 is greater than that extra income, then the difference between the two, I will be getting a rebate. So I am getting a rebate of 16,000. After a rebate of 16,000, I will pay a tax of 10,000. Why has the government created this type of a complex formula? The reason is, imagine case 2 and case 3 together. Case 2 and case 3. In case 2, the person is earning an income of 7 lakhs. He is not paying any tax. So after not paying tax, obviously, the money remaining in his pocket is 7 lakh rupees. But now imagine for case 3, if this rebate was not given to him, case number 3, if the rebate was not given, he earned an income of 7,10,000. You asked him to pay tax of 26,000. The money left in his pocket is 6,84,000. He will complain. Case 3 wala individual will complain that I just earned an extra 10,000 and you took away from my pocket extra 16,000. If you find the difference between the two, you will find that 16,000. Because I earned extra 10,000, I am forced to pay additional 16,000. That is why the money in my pocket is lesser. That's what the government is saying. Okay, fine. Case 3, you take a 16,000 rebate. You just pay 10,000 rupees to us. If the case 3 person pays 10,000, it means from 7,10,000, he is paying 10,000 ka tax. He is also left out with the same money, 7 lakhs, that case 2 wala individual is left out with. So that's the logic behind this complicated formula. To keep it very simple, in your mind, you may think like this. What is the tax that I'm paying? The tax that I'm paying is 26,000. What is the extra income over and above 7 lakhs? 10,000. If the tax is greater than the extra income, then the difference between these two is my rebate. If the tax is greater than the extra income over and above 7 lakhs, the difference between the two is my rebate. You can apply this logic in case 4 also. If I have an income of 7,70,000, if I have an income of 7,70,000, my tax will be 3 lakhs to 6 lakhs 15,000, 6 lakhs to 7,70,000. That is an income of 1,70,000. Uspe 10%, 17,000. So I am getting a tax of 32,000. What is the tax? 32,000. What is the extra income over and above 7 lakhs? 70,000. अब 32,000 का टैक्स पे करने के लिए आई हैव 70,000 का एक्स्ट्रा इनकम. आई हैव इनफ इनकम टू पे द फुल 32,000. इवन इफ आई पे 32,000 फुल्ली, द मनी इन माई पॉकेट विल बी मच more than the case to individual. From a 7,70,000 का income, if I pay 32,000, I will be left out with 738, which is definitely more. Now why should this case for individual get a rebate? No rebate allowed. This guy has to pay the full 32,000. So this table might help you. Find out the tax if the income exceeds 7 lakhs. Find out the extra income. If tax is greater than the extra income, take a rebate of the difference. Tax minus the extra income. If tax is less than the extra income, then the rebate is not available. Chalo, coming back, there is one small amendment that I missed out in this PDF. This amendment is relating to surcharge. We all know that surcharge in case of individuals works out something like this: 0 to 50 lakhs of income, no surcharge. If the income is greater than 50 lakhs but up to 1 crore, then it is 10% of my basic tax. If the income is greater than 1 crore but up to 2 crores, 15% of the basic tax. Greater than 2 crore but up to 5 crore, 25%, and greater than 5 crore, 37%. I told you government is trying to make 115 BAC a little bit more attractive. So what is the government saying? These rates will remain the same for an assessee who is opting out. If the assessee is now paying tax as per the default regime 115 BAC, 0, 10%, 15%, 25%, and here comes the amendment. This is also 25%. So any income that you earn above 5 crores under the default regime, your surcharge rate gets reduced from 37% to 25%. Instead of paying a surcharge of 37%, you will pay, instead of paying a surcharge of 37% as per the opt-out regime, you will pay surcharge of 25% only. So I have taken an example where I have kept the incomes the same. 6 crore ka income as per default, 6 crore ka income as per opt-out. In that you will observe that the opt-out person suffers a 37% surcharge. The default wala person has to pay only a 25% surcharge. Now if you compare the amounts, you can observe, yes, there is a huge amount of tax difference, almost 23 lakh 70,000 odd amount. So that's how the government is basically trying to tell you, go for the default scheme. Even if you earn income in the highest category, you will just pay 25% surcharge. Effectively, you might agree, any income above 2 crores will suffer a surcharge of 25%. Two last small amendments. We know that computation of income under 115 BAC, many exemptions, many deductions are not allowed to you. Up to last year, salaried people did not get any deduction under section 16 when they used to pay tax under 115 BAC. You get 3 deductions under section 16, standard deduction, entertainment allowance, professional tax paid. None of the 3 were allowed. Now the change that they have introduced is, okay, standard deduction of 50,000 will now be allowed to who pay tax as per the default regime. So that means now whether you are in the default scheme or in the opt-out scheme, 115 BAC ya budget, standard deduction of 50,000 will be allowed. Chapter 6 deductions are not allowed. We all know that. If you pay tax under 115 BAC, 80 CCD subsection 2, employer making a contribution to pension scheme, 80 JJAA, if you employ new people in your organization, you get a deduction 30% of their wages. These 2 deductions are permitted. Now there is a new section introduced as per our budget. 80CCH. Government had started that Agnipath scheme, Agniveer scheme, where if you are enrolled as an individual, you are called as a Agniveer. So an Agniveer corpus fund was created, and in that corpus fund, the individual will contribute, the central government will contribute. Whatever is contribution by central government will be first taken as your salary income. Individual का own contribution is allowed under 80CCH. Individual का own contribution is allowed under 80CCH subsection 1. Central government का contribution which you have initially taken as your salary income will now be allowed under 80CCH subsection 2. But then under the default scheme we know that chapter 6A deductions are not permitted. So the government is saying कि yes, chapter 6A deductions are not permitted. 80CCH subsection 1 का deduction we will not give you, but we will give you 80CCH subsection 2 का deduction. So if you are getting contributions made into your Agniveer account which is covered under subsection 2, those deductions will be allowed. So this is your 115 BAC का amendment. Quite a lot of amendments, many small things to take care of. Slab rates have changed, rebate में है, surcharge में है amendments. So just study 115 BAC एकदम properly. चलो, let's move ahead. A very small amendment, section 9. Section 9 talks about incomes which are deemed to accrue or arise in India. The amendment is, if a resident person gives to a resident but not ordinarily resident person any sum of money outside India for no consideration. In simple words, this means money is gifted. This provision currently is existing when a resident person gifts such money to a non-resident. Now what is the amendment that they have introduced? They have also now covered resident but not ordinarily resident. It's a minor amendment, but the impact is when the resident but not ordinarily resident is receiving this sum of money outside India, it will be deemed to accrue or arise in India. Therefore, it means for this guy, money above 50,000 rupees received as gift will be taxable as income from other sources. Second amendment, salaries. Now, this is also something significant. When we used to get rent-free or concessional rent accommodation from the employer, we used to find the value of the perquisites. Budget 2023, which was announced on 1st Feb 2023, the finance minister said that we are going to change the valuation rules. The change, however, was notified in August 2023. They came out with a notification somewhere in the month of August or maybe September. I'm not very sure. I think it was August. The study material that you have, June 2023. In fact, just a minute, I can check it. Yeah, 18th of August. Yeah. The study material that you would be having from ICAI is the June 2023 edition. Obviously, in the month of June, government had not notified the new rules, the new formulas. So, in your study material, you still have the old formulas. August में notification came out. Therefore, CA Institute also, when it came out with a statutory update, it said, do not follow the thing mentioned in your module because they are the old rates. These were your old provisions. 2001 का census was taken as the base. The amendment has taken 2011 का census as the base. So that is one big change. Based on the population where the accommodation is, we used to change the percentages. 2001 का census, उसके बाद there was 2011 का census, 2021 का census did not happen. So now the change introduced by the government is take 2011 का census as the base. Second change that they've done is they've changed the percentages, they've changed the population. All of you might be aware, especially the November 23 students. You are aware about this. This is the formula that you have studied. 15% of salary, 10% of salary, 7.5% of salary. Population limits less than 10 lakhs, 10 lakhs to 25 lakhs, about 25 lakhs. Now guys, this old thing is deleted. You have to remember the new limits. If the place where the accommodation is provided is in an area where the population is less than or equal to 15 lakhs, let us call this place as a small place, small town, small city, then it is 5% of salary that is taxable, but it is small as per 2011 ka census. If the population is above 15 lakhs but less than or equal to 40 lakhs, let's call this as a medium city. 7.5% of salary is taxable. And if the population is greater than 40 lakhs, then 10% of salary becomes taxable. Yes, in the PDF you will find I have printed both. Why did I print both? Firstly, to make a student observe that yes, percentages have changed, population limits have changed. But then I hope you have to understand that old has to be forgotten. You don't need to worry about the old one. You have to worry about the new one. The current rates applicable is what you have to follow. 10%, 7.5% and 5%. If a student compares the percentages, he or she might feel, okay sir, they have reduced the percentages. Answer is yes, they have reduced the percentages. They have reduced the percentages, the taxable amount will reduce. But then please also understand, there are some examples where the taxable amount will increase also. Like for example, a city which used to be a small city because the population was below 10 lakhs, but as per 2001 census, as per 2011 census, the population could very well be above 40 lakhs. So what was taxed at 7.5% increases to 10%. This is one possibility. Second possibility is cities like Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, Bangalore, where population anyways was about 25 lakhs earlier also, today is also above 40 lakhs. Those employees will get the benefit because they earlier used to consider 15% of salary, now they will pay tax at 10% of salary. Fine. This comparison is purely for your observation. From an exam perspective, just remember, less than 15 lakhs, small city, 15 to 40, medium city, above 40 lakhs, big city, the percentages are 5%, 7.5% and 10% of salary. Salary ka meaning remains the same. Everything that the employer pays to the employee, which is monetary cash, which is taxable, but it does not include taxable allowance, it does not include DA not in terms, advance salary, arrears of salary, employer's contribution to provident funds, taxable perquisites. The same meaning of salary that you would have studied earlier equally applies here. The second big amendment, this was if the accommodation is owned by the employer. If the accommodation is hired by the employer, your old provision was actual rent paid by the employer or maximum 15%. But if you observed that 15% has been brought down to 10%, so the formula changes from 15% to 10%. Now, second big amendment, this is something absolutely new. If the employer gives an accommodation to the employee and every year the employee continues to have that same accommodation, year on year basis the employee occupies that same accommodation. That accommodation could be owned by employer, that accommodation could be hired by employer, does not matter, the concept applies. If this happens, then the first year is your previous year 23-24. Find out the taxable value for previous year 23-24 and that is taxable, finished, that's okay. Next year 24-25, 25-26, 26-27, the employee continues to occupy that property. Step number 1, follow your formula and find out the taxable value in the normal course. The way you would have found out every year. Salary le lo, uska 10%, 7.5%, 5%, whatever applies. Follow the formula and find out the taxable amount. Step 1. Step 2. Use the capital gain index numbers, cost inflation index. and find out the indexed value of the 23-24 taxable value. So you are into 24-25, take the taxable amount of 23-24 and index it. You are into 25-26, take the taxable value of 23-24 only, that's your base year now, and index it up to 25-26. That will give you the second amount. So step 1, follow the formula normally. Step 2, do this indexation aspect. Finally, the taxable amount will be whichever is less. This actually acts as a benefit for the employee. See, look at the example. Mr. Ram is provided with a rent-free unfurnished accommodation in Mumbai in the year 23-24. This is your first year. This accommodation continues to be occupied by him for the next 2 years. Now I have assumed the cost inflation index. For the year 23-24, we all know that the cost inflation index is 348. But the next 2 years ka cost inflation index will be announced in the subsequent years. Just to be able to demonstrate this example, I have taken an assumption. Step 1, find out the taxable value normally. 23-24 is the first year. Let us assume as per the definition, salary works out to 17,24,000. 10% के हिसाब से, assuming it's in a big city, 170 to 400 taxable. Finally, that's what I'll pay tax. That's the first year. Second year, employer ने मेरा salary increase कर दिया. Now my salary is 18,10,000. As per the formula, 10%. Now what do? You take this 170 to 400 and you index it. I have assumed 370 divided by 348. Indexed value works out to 1,83,299. Out of the two, whichever is lower will be taxable, which is 181, which anyways was taxable normally, obviously. But अब imagine करो, suppose your employer gave you a salary increase from 18 lakhs to 21 lakhs. 18 lakh 10,000 से 21 lakh 63,000. Your salary got increased substantially. Salary increase हुआ, so the 10% amount will increase. Now take the base year 170 to 400 का taxable amount, index it from the year 23-24 to the year 25-26. This figure is 2,03,000. This is lesser than your normal calculation 2,16,000. If this amendment was not there, 216,340 would have been taxable. Because of this amendment, employee will now get a slight benefit. The amount taxable will be lower of the two, so he need not pay tax on 216,340. His taxable amount will be 2,03,115. That's why I said कि हाँ ये थोड़ा सा beneficial provision है. First follow your system normally, then take 23-24 as your base year and index it. That indexed value or the normal calculation, whichever is lower, will be the amount taxable. Salaries के chapter में this is one small amendment. This is small तो नहीं, but yes, it's an important amendment. PGBP, okay. No amendment in the chapter of house property. PGBP. If you get any benefit, if you get any perquisite in the course of your business or profession, it is taxable. This amendment is a simple clarification. आपका ये जो benefit है, is it in cash, monetary है? Is it in kind, fully in kind, partly cash, partly kind? If it is in kind, can it be converted into money? Not converted into money? All the possibilities are imagined and the drafting is done. Any benefit or perquisite received by a businessman, received by a professional, monetary, non-monetary, non-monetary हुआ तो can be converted into money, cannot be converted into money, does not matter. Benefit हुआ in the course of business profession, taxable. Next amendment, 43B. This is also an amendment which you can expect in your PGBP sum. 43B has a list of expenses which are allowed as a deduction according to payment made irrespective of your method of accounting. if you make the payment after the financial year gets over, but on or before the due date of filing return, then deduction will be allowed in that year when the expense was payable. Otherwise, deduction will be allowed whenever you make the payment. Okay. So now what is the amendment introduced? If you are dealing with a micro enterprise or a small enterprise, if you are doing a transaction with a micro enterprise or a small enterprise as per Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Act, MSMED, Micro, Small, Medium Enterprises Development Act. If you are doing a transaction with a micro enterprise or a small enterprise, if you listen to the name of the act covers medium enterprises also. MSMED Act में medium enterprises भी है, but medium enterprises are not covered by this amendment. Medium enterprises are not covered by this section 43B. We are only targeting a micro enterprise or a small enterprise. अब ये micro enterprise, small enterprise क्या है? If you are into manufacturing, then your plant and machinery का investment is less than equal to 25 lakhs, so you're a micro enterprise. If it is greater than 25 lakhs but less than equal to 5 crore, so you're a small enterprise. If you are into service sector, तो equipment में तुम्हारा investment should be 10 lakhs or less, तो micro, greater than 10 but up to 2 crore, तो small. If you do a transaction with a micro or a small enterprise, then you have to strictly follow section 15 of MSMED Act and make the payment as per section 15 का time limit. 43B of Income Tax Act will come into picture once you miss out the time limit of MSMED Act. 43B says deduction will be allowed on payment basis. So two important things to study here. The first one, 43B will only come into picture when you miss out the deadline set by MSMED Act का section 15. Number one. Number two, so the natural question coming up in somebody's mind is, sir, ये section 15 of MSMED Act, what is the time limit? 2 minutes, we are going into it. The second part of the amendment is, if 43B applies in this transaction with micro enterprise or small enterprise, then assessee who is doing PGBP, when you are going to make a payment, वो ड्यू डेट ऑफ फाइलिंग रिटर्न वाला जो एक्स्ट्रा टाइम यू आर गेटिंग, you will not get in this case. If you make a payment on or before the due date of filing return of income, then you will get a deduction in the current year itself. This logic, this rule will apply to other expenses of 43B. For micro and small enterprises, if you miss out the section 15 of MSMED Act deadline, miss out हो गया, then 43B applies. Actual payment जब होगा तब you will get the deduction. Even if it is before the due date of filing return, that concept will not apply. देखो, between the two people where one of them is doing PGBP and the other one is a micro or a small enterprise. So I have two people here in my example. One is the PGBP assessee and the other is a micro enterprise or a small enterprise. अब between the two, if there is a written agreement है राइटिंग में, तो the time limit is 45 days. As per MSMED Act, 45 days. In your written agreement, if you have mentioned that the payment should be made in 52 days, that will not apply, 45 days will apply. In your written agreement, if you have mentioned something above 45 days, irrelevant, 45 days is the maximum time limit. हाँ, in your agreement, if you have mentioned 38 days, तो payment has to be made within 38 days. 45 days maximum होना चाहिए. If the payment is made within 45 days, deduction allowed on accrual basis, 43B does not come into picture. If you make a payment after 45 days, that means after that section 15 का time limit, now 43B applies. You will not get the benefit of due date of filing return of income, whatever is the actual payment wala year, that is the time when deduction will be allowed. If between the two parties there is no written agreement, then the standard time limit is that you must settle the payment within 15 days of transaction. Micro enterprise, small enterprise का cash inflow will increase because of this. Cash inflow will increase, नहीं, the word should be improve होगा. PGBP assessees, they will have to promptly make the payment. If they make the payment within 15 days, there is no written agreement, ठीक है, you are following section 15 of MSMED Act, 43B will not apply. जिस year expense incur हुआ, take a deduction. If the payment is made after 15 days, 43B applies. Now deduction will be allowed on actual payment basis. Look at this. Let's say there is a businessman, Mr. Anshul Goenka. Transaction was done on 24th January 2024. From a micro enterprise, we purchased raw material. Now 24th January 2024. अगर written agreement था, तो you get a time limit of 45 days. If there was no written agreement, you get a time limit of 15 days. So accordingly, last date calculate हो गया as per MSMED Act section 15. If you make a payment on 17th of February 2024, so yes, it is within the time limit. 43B is not applicable. 43B is not applicable. Deduction मिलेगा on accrual basis 23-24. If the payment is made on 27th of March, did you miss your 45 days deadline? Yes, sir. Now 43B will apply in example number 2. The year in which payment is made. Luckily, we made the payment in the same year 23-24 itself, तो deduction current year में मिल गया. But if I make a payment on 6th of May 2024, now my due date of filing return will be 31st July 24 या समझो 31st October 24 या 30th November 24. But वो due date का advantage is not going to be there only for me. I missed my deadline of 45 days. The year in which actual payment was made, deduction will be allowed in that year. So in example number 3, when you will solve your question, what you will have to do is, for the year 23-24, मेरा expenditure was 2,83,000. So for the year 23-24, वो 2,83,000 add back होगा, expense will be disallowed, because in the year 24-25 net profit में से this 2,83,000 will be deducted. You will get a deduction in the next year. You will not get a deduction in the current year क्योंकि तुमने section 15 of MSMED Act का deadline miss कर दिया. Similar example I have created when there is no written agreement. 15 days का deadline follow करना है. Example 1 I followed the deadline. Example 2 I did not follow the deadline. तो 43B apply हो गया. Then whichever year actual payment was made, deduction was allowed in that year. In simpler words, that's what I've tried to highlight also. If payment is made before due date of filing return, but in the next year, deduction will be allowed in the next year. चलो PGBP going ahead, the amendments. हाँ, ये clarification amendment है. This amendment is basically saying कि if you are covered by these two sections of presumptive taxation, 44ADA serial number 2 ये वाला 44ADA, this talks about professionals, and the first one 44AD, this talks about businesses. If you are covered by those sections and you declare your profits as per those sections, as per those sections mean every section gives you a assumed profit. If you are maintaining books of account, then calculate the profit as per books. Out of the two, whichever is higher is taxable. If you pay tax according to this formula, if you show your PGBP according to this formula, then audit ka section will not be applicable. You don't need to get your audit done. This was not expressly mentioned earlier. The reverse thing was mentioned. Reverse thing matlab, if I do not follow subsection 1, if I do not follow subsection 1 to get the audit done, अब ये क्लैरिफिकेशन आ गया, इफ सबसेक्शन 1 इज फॉलोड तो ऑडिट इज नॉट एप्लीकेबल. ओके, देन 44AD का अमेंडमेंट, they have increased the threshold. For 44AD, your original threshold was your turnover gross receipt should be less than equal to 2 crores. They have not deleted this. They have just increased it by saying during the year in cash, whatever part of the turnover etc. you have received, but in cash, if that does not exceed 5% of your total turnover, then you will be able to avail this section ka benefit if the sales or gross receipt are less than equal to 3 crores. So the original threshold of 2 crores is still there, but they have increased it to cover more assessees. How? By saying that 2 करोड़ की जगह पे अप्लाई 3 करोड़ का थ्रेशोल्ड, प्रोवाइडेड दैट assessee has received his turnover or gross receipts in cash which is 5% or less. देखो एक कंपैरिजन क्या दिखाया मैंने, if the amount received in cash is less than equal to 5%, amount received in cash is less than equal to 5%, then turnover is less than equal to 3 crore, yes, you can avail the benefit of this section. Turnover crosses 3 crore, obviously this section will not apply. If you have received amounts in cash greater than 5%, greater than 5%, so by the old threshold of 2 crores will apply, less than equal to 2 crore, only then this presumptive ka section will apply. The moment your turnover exceeds 2 crore, presumptive section will not apply. So just to demonstrate this, the old threshold is 2 crores, the new threshold is 3 crore. Just keep this in mind. My turnover gross receipts 1 crore 5 lakhs. Anyways, if you apply your common sense, 1 crore 5 lakhs is below 2 crores also, below 3 crores also. So the section is going to apply. Out of 1 crore 5 lakh, cash is 25 lakhs. 1 crore 5 lakh का 5% is 5,25,000. Is my cash less than 5%, more than 5%? बोला more than 5%. But threshold of 2 crore, section तो anyways apply होगा ना, turnover is below 2 crores. Case 2 and case 3 will give you a better picture. I had a turnover of 2 crores 70 lakhs. 2 करोड़ से ऊपर है. Cash receipts are 24 lakhs. एक काम करो, take your turnover, multiply that by 5%, amount आया 13,50,000. So how much did you take in cash? 24 lakhs. What is the 5% amount? 13,50,000. Did you receive more than 5% cash? Yes. Sorry, I received less than 5% cash. Sorry. Did I receive cash more than 5%? More than 5%? Yes. This should be, cash receipts are above 5%. So the threshold is going to be 2 crores. Case 2, my turnover is 2 crore 70 lakhs, तो presumptive taxation will not apply. Very sorry, थोड़ा calculation mistake हो गया. Example 3, I had a turnover of 2 crore 80 lakhs. उसका 5% is 14 lakhs. Let's make this example कि cash में सिर्फ 4 lakhs मिला. Cash में सिर्फ और सिर्फ 4 lakhs मिला. Is my cash receipt less than 5%? Yes. So my threshold is 3 crores. मेरा turnover is 2 crore 80 lakhs. Despite being about 2 crores, I can now definitely avail 44AD. Similar amendment next section professionals के लिए भी आया है, 44ADA. The original threshold is less than equal to 50 lakhs. ये मेरा original threshold है. But if the amount of cash that I have received does not exceed 5%, तो 50 की जगह पे it will be 75 lakhs. Cash received less than equal to 5%, threshold becomes 75 lakhs. Section will apply, presumptive taxation का section. The moment it goes above 75 lakhs, obviously section will not apply. if the amount received in cash is greater than 5%, so the old threshold of 50 lakhs will apply. We'll just cross check this example also. First example, 35 lakhs gross receipts, 5% amount works out to 1,75,000. मेरा तो कैश रिसीट इज 5 lakhs, बट डज नॉट मैटर 35 lakhs है, तो द थ्रेशोल्ड इज 50. सेक्शन तो एनीवेज अप्लाई होगा. 35 lakhs इज बिलो 50 lakhs ऑल्सो एंड बिलो 75 lakhs ऑल्सो. केस नंबर 2, ग्रॉस रिसीट्स 60 lakhs, 5% अमाउंट वर्क्स आउट टू 3 lakhs, बट मेरा कैश अमाउंट इज 4 lakhs. आउट ऑफ 60 lakhs, 4 lakhs इज रिसीव्ड इन कैश. माई कैश इज लेस देन नहीं, ग्रेटर देन 5%. तो पुराना थ्रेशोल्ड 50 lakhs will apply and I have a turnover, not turnover, gross receipts of 60 lakhs. तो presumptive taxation का section is not applicable. But same example, 60 lakhs का gross receipts from profession, cash में what is received is only 2 lakh rupees. Cash में what is received is only 2 lakhs. That means my cash receipts are less than the 5%. अब मेरा threshold will become 75 lakhs and my gross receipts are 60 lakhs. तो yes, presumptive taxation का section will be applicable. So the PGBP amendments are this much. Moving ahead, amendments in capital gains. Okay, this is one very small amendment. ठीक है, it's going to be very simple, so chances of this coming in the paper very rare because it's a very simple thing. Government is trying to set up a gold stock exchange, like there is gold exchange, like there is a stock exchange for shares. Government is trying to set up gold ka exchange. For this, a new instrument is getting introduced, electronic gold receipt. Gold in electronic form. So the encouragement given is you have physical gold. It gets converted into, you surrender that physical gold and you get electronic gold receipt. Gold getting converted into EGR. Capital gains is not taxable. Like you studied debenture getting converted into share or preference share getting converted into equity share. This is related to gold. Physical gold getting converted to EGR. No capital gain taxable at that stage. Then when you will sell the EGR, capital gain becomes taxable. What will be the cost of this EGR? The cost of the gold that you surrendered. Holding period of gold will be included in the holding period of EGR to decide long term, short term. Reverse concept is also applicable. Suppose you purchased EGR and then you got it converted into gold. So EGR converted into gold, capital gain not taxable. Now what do you have with you? Gold. If this gold is sold, हाँ तभी कैपिटल गेन टैक्सेबल होगा. बट ये गोल्ड यू गॉट बिकॉज ऑफ EGR, तो कॉस्ट ऑफ EGR विल बी नाउ कॉस्ट ऑफ गोल्ड. होल्डिंग पीरियड ऑफ EGR विल बी इंक्लूडेड इन होल्डिंग पीरियड ऑफ गोल्ड. सो नथिंग ग्रेट और नथिंग डिफिकल्ट. कन्वर्जन फ्रॉम गोल्ड टू EGR और EGR टू गोल्ड, कैपिटल गेन इज नॉट टैक्सेबल. Whatever was the cost paid for the previous capital asset will now become cost of the current capital asset, and holding period of the previous asset will be included in the holding period of the current capital asset right now. Okay, एक important सा amendment but very easy. If you have taken a loan, if you have taken a loan for a house property, उसका interest is allowed as a deduction under 24B. Some of the interests are allowed under chapter 6A also. Any capital asset for which you have obtained a loan, you can capitalize the interest into the cost, option 1, or option 2, you can take a deduction under 24B, you can take a deduction under chapter 6A. Now government observed that assessees are doing both. They are taking a deduction under house property chapter under 24B, under chapter 6A, ATEE, ATEEA, electric vehicle के लिए ATEEB will be there. They are taking a deduction under 24B and chapter 6A, and they are also capitalizing that into the cost. That means you are getting a double benefit. ये देखो, this person, let's say he has purchased a house, he has constructed a house property, and there is this concept of pre-construction period. Once you read the whole example in detail, you will understand pre-construction period का exact data क्या है. 20 months is the pre-construction period. उसका interest works out to 4,20,000. House property chapter का knowledge use करो. This 4,20,000 will be spread over 5 years. Every year you will get a deduction of 84,000 under the head house property ना. तो house property में section 24B में you have taken a deduction over 5 years and then you take the cost 48 lakhs and in that you add that 4,20,000 का pre period का interest. अब ये तो double benefit हुआ ना. You capitalized it also and you took a revenue deduction also. नहीं चलेगा. So Mr. Rohit cannot capitalize the interest of 4,20,000. The cost will be taken as 48 lakhs only. If Mr. Rohit he wants to capitalize 420, he feels it is better in capital gains working, karo capitalize. Then the cost will include 420, but then pre-construction period का 1/5 interest का deduction नहीं मिलेगा. So when you start your house property deduction, you will have to be, as an assessee, be aware कि either you can capitalize it or you can take a HP deduction, but दोनों नहीं हो सकता. Okay, a new section introduced, section 50AA. There are two things that are introduced in this section. One, market linked debentures. Generally you get debentures pay fixed rate of interest, but a new instrument that has come up in the recent time is this concept of market linked debentures. What does this mean? एक debenture है, you will get interest on that debenture connected to market returns. So when the company will issue the debenture, it will say debentures are for 5 years. 5 years later, if the Sensex is 80,000 or above, then we will pay you this much interest for these 5 years. I'll repeat. Today the company is issuing debentures to you. It says debentures carrying 7% per annum interest. Duration 5 years. So let's say face value 100, 35 rupees का aggregate interest हुआ per debenture. Now what will the company do? It will not give you interest every year. It will tell you, okay, see, if the Sensex 5 years later is 80,000 or above, today the Sensex is around 70,000. If it is 80,000 or above, then we will give you 35 rupees ka interest also for all these 5 years put together along with your 100. If the Sensex is below 80,000, then we will only give you back your 100 rupees, we will not give you any interest. So as a debenture holder, my returns from the debenture are linked to index. Nifty is 21,000, 5 years later if Nifty is 23,000. That is market linked debenture. Now for this market linked debenture, you may get interest, you may not get interest. It is a little bit uncertain. Generally interest would be taxed as income from other sources, but now the government is saying nahi. For a market linked debenture, we are introducing a new section under capital gains chapter. When you have this market linked debenture, compute income under the head capital gains. Take your full value of consideration. What is full value of consideration? When that market linked debenture will mature 5 years later, whatever you get, minus any transfer expense, if any transfer expenses are incurred, minus the cost of acquisition, and the most important thing is that it is deemed to be short term capital asset. Section 50AA has assumed it to be short term. तुम्हारा holding period 3 years, 36 months या 12 months, nothing of that has to be checked. Assumed to be short term, your capital gain will be short term capital gain. So whatever amount you will get at the end, that will obviously be your principal amount plus that interest amount. your returns on that you get on the debenture, less transfer expense if there are any transfer expense, less cost of acquisition. You will tax the difference. That difference will be this interest component minus any transfer expense if you have. That will be taxed as capital gain and not income from other sources. Obviously, if that criteria did not get satisfied, Sensex was below 80,000, the company will give you only the principal amount, it will not give you the interest. Then either you will have zero answer, or maybe the transfer expenses might become your short term capital loss, but then IFOS में it is not going to be taxed. ये तुम्हारा मार्केट लिंक डिबेंचर, sorry, the second instrument covered here is units of specified mutual fund. A very welcome amendment. What's a specified mutual fund? A specified mutual fund is a mutual fund where not more than 35%. That means 35% or less. Whatever money mutual fund raises, it is investing 35% or less than that in equity shares. 35% or less. So if the mutual fund has raised 100 crores, it is investing into equity shares only 10 crores, 30 crores, 20 crores, 35 crores, but less than that, 35 or less. So the balance money is invested by mutual fund into debentures, bonds, government securities. Now that is a specified mutual fund. You have units, you are a unit holder. So this section 50AA is applicable to that debenture holder or to the unit holder. Your units will be deemed to be short term. When you redeem the units, whatever you get as your full value of consideration minus transfer expense minus cost of acquisition of those units, balance amount is taxable as short term capital gains. No separate tax rate has been prescribed. This means this short term capital gain will be taxable as per your regular rates. Sir, what do you mean by regular rates? If the assessee earning this capital gain is a company, if the assessee earning this capital gain is a company, is a partnership firm, तो फ्लैट टैक्स रेट अप्लाई कर दो. फर्म का 30%, कंपनी का 25% और 30% जो अप्लाई होता है. इफ द assessee earning this capital gain is an individual like you and me or a HUF, तो रेगुलर टैक्स रेट्स मतलब डिफॉल्ट रेजिम, ऑप्ट आउट रेजिम. Default regime, you know 115 BAC. Opt out regime, there are 3 slab rates possible depending on your age and residential status. Normal income, जैसे you would tax salary and HP, you will tax this capital gain also. In this example wala sheet, I've just presented a kind of analysis. We all know that there is something called as equity oriented mutual fund. Definition is minimum 65% is invested into equity shares. Now the amendment is this specified mutual fund which says maximum 35% is invested into equity share. So one way if a student thinks, sir, equity oriented and specified mutual fund are kind of opposites. Yes, you can say that. If 100 crores has been raised by the mutual fund and 70 crores are invested into equity shares and 30 crores are invested into debentures, bond, etc., so it's a equity oriented mutual fund. But if 100 crores is raised by a mutual fund, it's way too light. If 100 crores is raised by a mutual fund and only 20 crores are invested in equity shares and 80 crores are invested in debenture, bond, government security, so it's a specified mutual fund. If it is a equity oriented mutual fund, so yes, the 12 months criteria will apply for short term, long term. short term capital gain will be taxed at 15% section 111A. Long term capital gain will be taxed for the unit holder under section 112A. You will get an exemption of 1 lakh. 10% will be the tax rate, and yes, because it is 112A, indexation will not be allowed. Equity oriented mutual fund, the law is settled. Now the new thing that they introduced was specified mutual fund. Specified mutual fund means maximum 35% is invested into equity share, major money is invested into debenture, bond, government security, etc. उसमें long term is not possible, only always deemed to be short term. If it is short term, regular tax rates will apply. Sir, what if a mutual fund raises 100 crores and is investing into equity share 50 crore and debenture, bond, etc. 50 crore? People who understood the last 5 minutes, 7 minutes of the lecture will easily now be able to think on their own. Some of you might have already thought while you were listening. Sir, what if 50% equity में डाला, 50% debt में डाला? You don't fit up in the definition of equity oriented also. You don't fit up in the definition of specified mutual fund also. Yes. Now there is nothing mentioned in the law. No word is given to it. I call it as any other mutual fund. Any other मतलब जो equity में नहीं है, जो specified mutual fund नहीं है, उसके लिए you can still have units of such a mutual fund. There are many such mutual funds you will find in the market. Normal 36 months का criteria apply करो. 36 months or less than 36 months, short term, greater than 36 months, long term. Yes, if their long term indexation will be available, there is no restriction put up. Short term regular tax rate मतलब यही 115 BAC, default, opt out, company form हुआ तो flat rate. Long term 20% section 112. 112A will not apply because this is not a equity oriented mutual fund. So ये tabular थोड़ा comparison दिया है मैंने because of the specified mutual fund being clarified now. Earlier it was only equity oriented and other than equity oriented. अब उसमें एक और bifurcation आ गया, specified mutual fund. So now I have 3 categories. तीनों का comparison is what I have put up in the example वाला sheet. Okay, so last amendment in capital gains. Easy सा amendment है. It's kind of important. It's very easy. It says के when you take exemption under section 54. What is section 54? You sell a house, you invest into another house. Then there is a maximum limit put up now. The cost of this house has to be maximum 10 crores. Maximum 10 crores. उससे ज़्यादा का cost if you purchase a house worth 12 crore, तो वो 12 crore is fully not eligible for exemption. You will get an exemption up to 10 crore only. तो maximum limit डाल दिया. Same amendment is introduced in 54F also. What is 54F? You are selling a capital asset which is not a residential house property, but you are investing into a residential house property. तुमने शेयर बेचा, म्यूचुअल फंड यूनिट बेचा, ज्वेलरी बेचा, ओपन प्लॉट ऑफ लैंड इज सोल्ड and you are investing it into a house property. तो you are expected to invest into a house property. उसका भी cost maximum 10 crore ही होगा. Any cost, ये line important है, any cost incurred above 10 crore, the excess will be ignored for exemption purposes. So when you calculate your exemption, cost of new asset, if it is 9 crore, take the 9 crore into the formula. Cost of new asset, if it is 19 crore, 19 crore pura will not be eligible for exemption, maximum 10 crore. Then use 10 crore into the formula and calculate your exemption. I have put up numeric examples for section 54 and 54F. They are kind of very simple. Just go through it. I am not spending time on doing the calculation part. वो already ready है. तुम अपने आप cross check कर लेना. Okay. Very small amendment. If it is any other intangible asset, goodwill, etc. was always covered. Any right to do business profession was always covered. Any other intangible asset or any other right, improvement cost to be taken as 0. And if it is acquired, cost of acquisition, so whatever you have paid to acquire it, तो वो cost ले लो. If the previous owner has paid it, cost to previous owner. So this is something very small, very insignificant. ठीक है. Income from other sources. Sorry. Income from other sources. When a private limited company issues shares to resident person at a premium, if the issue price is greater than the market value, the extra money taken by the private company was taxable for the company. It is still taxable. Now the scope of this provision is expanded. No longer only residents, even non-residents are covered. So earlier it used to be if you issue shares to resident person only. Now whether you are a resident or a non-resident, if the issue price is greater than the fair market value, then the difference between the two amounts will be taxable for you. Second, winnings from online games. IFOS में the amendment is little bit easy, little bit small. TDS में the amendment is a more significant one. You will pay tax at the rate of 30% only, but a new section is introduced, 115BBJ. So normal incomes like lottery, gambling, betting, horse race, that is taxed under 115BB. 115BB उसमें भी 30% ही है. But ये online gamings, all that Rummy, Dream 11 and Poker Bazi and all that, they will be taxed under a separate section, 115BBJ. Tax rate same है 30%. No losses can be set off. No Chapter 6A deduction can be claimed. It's just a new section, but the tax rate remains the same, 30%. हाँ, TDS का नया section आया है 194BA. That is what you have to follow for online games. Okay, एक important सा lengthy सा amendment, life insurance premium से related, life insurance policy से related amendment. Now this amendment targets those life insurance policies where the yearly premium is greater than 5 lakhs. So high premium policies where the major motive is to make an investment into the policy and not have pure life insurance, but you want to claim the exemption as life insurance money. Now that exemption will not be available. Important thing, policy should be issued on or after 1st April 2023. This concept, this date is important because the examiner will give you a policy in the question which will be issued before this date, and 1st February, 1st January 2023, and the premium will be greater than 5 lakhs. The moment you will see 5 lakhs greater than premium greater than 5 lakhs, you will say okay, this is taxable, but the provision does not apply to those policies. This concept is only applicable if the policy is issued on or after 1st April 2023. You have to take care of the date also here. अगर आपका प्रीमियम इज ग्रेटर देन 5 lakhs, मेच्योरिटी पे अमाउंट मिला दैट शैल बी टैक्सेबल, डेथ पे जो अमाउंट मिला दैट शैल कंटिन्यू टू बी एग्जेम्प्ट. सो इफ द मनी इज रिसीव्ड ऑन डेथ, then the legal heir will get the exemption like a normal life insurance policy would enjoy the exemption. If the money is received on maturity, the amount will be taxable. Then to avoid this concept, to avoid this provision, people can buy small policies, in the sense multiple policies, but each policy का premium is below 5 lakhs. Each policy का premium is below 5 lakhs, but 3-4 policies put together it is above 5 lakhs. Lawmakers are aware that you can do this type of manipulation also. They have covered this situation also. If multiple policies are purchased where premium for the individual policy is less than 5 lakhs but total premium is greater than 5 lakhs, then what is the rule? Whatever amount you receive from all those policies, total karo where the premium is up to 5 lakhs. I have 5 policies. Find out which policy ka premium is totaling up to 5 lakhs or less. then the money received from those policies will be exempted. Say out of 5 policies, 3 policies, the premium, yearly premium totals up to 5 lakhs. But the moment I add the 4th policy into these 3, total goes above 5 lakhs. तो ये 3 पॉलिसी में से जो मैच्योरिटी पे अमाउंट मिला वो exempt, the other 2 policies that remained, there the amount received will be taxable. But I also have to satisfy one more condition here, that मेरा जो yearly premium है should be less than equal to 10% of sum assured. This is the concept that is already existing for life insurance policies. So if I have taken multiple policies, step 1, find out all those policies जिनका total yearly premium is 5 lakhs or less, and their premium should be less than 10% of sum assured also. So the amount received is exempt. Balance policy का amount shall be taxable. If the premium is about 10% of sum assured, so anyways the maturity amount is taxable. Head of income. Now the head of income will be income from other sources. They have clarified this. After this, government came out with a circular. This circular is put up in the statutory update that ICAI has issued. The statutory update has some very good examples. Basically these examples are from the circular only that the government has issued. Study those examples ekdam properly. The theory printed may be a little bit confusing. So what I have done is I have converted the theory into a chart, 2 charts. But I have not reproduced the examples. The examples are there in the statutory update. You please refer to the examples. They will give you proper clarity in understanding the amendment. Eligible life insurance policy. Eligible life insurance policy means any policy which is issued on or after 1st April 2023. That's how the provision comes into existence. This is a term EEE, earlier exempt eligible life insurance policy. Prior to receiving the money in the current year, you have received money in the past years also, and you have claimed those as exempt. So those policies are earlier exempt eligible LIP. Eligible meaning obviously the premium is above 5 lakhs. They are issued after 1st April 2023, but we have already taken them as exempt earlier. Okay, look at the provision. You are receiving money in the current year, but you have not received any amount earlier, or even if you received some amount earlier, that amount has not been claimed exempt, that amount has been taxed earlier. So in the current year you are receiving some amount from a eligible policy. Eligible policy matlab premium was above 5 lakhs. If you have received it from one policy only, eligible policy means it is issued on or after 1st April 2023. Keep that definition. 5 lakhs wala definition nahi. Eligible policy matlab a policy which is issued on or after 1st April 2023. In the current year you received money from one policy only, and the premium was less than equal to 5 lakhs and the premium was less than 10% of sum assured, so amount is exempt. If the premium was greater than 5 lakhs, so amount is not exempt. It means now it will be taxable, and we know that it is going to be taxable as income from other sources. This is the situation where in the current year I have received money from a single policy. What if I would have received money from more than one policies? I have received money but multiple policies. Then find out all those eligible policies, premium total karo. If it is less than equal to 5 lakhs and less than equal to 10% wala condition is also satisfied, so the amount is exempt. Yearly total goes above 5 lakhs. So those policies where the premium is totaling to less than equal to 5 lakhs, वो exempt वाले category में आ जाएगा. Balance policies, the premium is going above 5 lakhs then less than equal to 5 lakhs, less than equal to 10% shall continue to be exempt, and the balance policies shall not be exempt, they shall be taxable as income from other sources. What was the situation, guys? Previously I have not got any money from insurance policies. This is the first year in which I am getting the money on maturity from the policy. Or previously I got the money, I did not take exemption, I paid tax. Now I am getting the money from eligible policies, now I want to take exemption. So this is how you will get exemption. Situation 2. Previously I have received money under the old policies and they have been claimed to be exempt. Ye EEE, earlier exempt eligible policy. Have I taken exemption in the past? Yes, I have taken exemption in the past. Am I now getting money from an insurance policy in the current year? Yes sir. So ab in the current year I got money from one policy only, a single policy matured. तो एक काम करो, take that single policy का premium, take the premium for all those earlier exempt. Past में you've claimed exemption ना? That means we are thinking of multiple policies here. Some policies matured in the earlier period and I took exemption. उसका premium लो, take that on your calculator. करंट में जो पॉलिसी मैच्योर हुआ है, टेक दैट प्रीमियम. इफ दैट टोटल ऑफ द ओल्ड पॉलिसीज एंड द करंट पॉलिसी इज लेस देन इक्वल टू 5 lakhs एंड लेस देन इक्वल टू 10% इज सेटिस्फाइड, तो अमाउंट रिसीव्ड इन द करंट ईयर इज एग्जेम्प्ट. पास्ट ईयर्स तो आई ऑलरेडी क्लेम्ड एग्जेम्पशन, बट पास्ट ईयर का प्रीमियम वेयर आई हैव टेकन एग्जेम्पशन, पास्ट ईयर का प्रीमियम प्लस करंट ईयर वट एवर आई एम गेटिंग दैट प्रीमियम. If the total goes above 5 lakhs, then past का तो exemption I've taken, fine. Current year का whatever money I am receiving will not be exempt. Now it will be taxable because the aggregate is crossing 5 lakhs. Suppose in the current year 2 policies are maturing, 3 policies are maturing, and in the past I have already taken exemption for some policies. By now, if you've understood the pattern, you will be able to predict what the circular says. Sorry. Whatever was the premium for the earlier exempt policies, plus whatever is the premium for those policies maturing today in the current year, multiple policies are maturing in the current year. Past ka premium, past policies, current policies, totals up to 5 lakhs or less. And ये 10% वाला criteria is also getting satisfied. So in the current year, from the multiple policies, what you get is exempt. But past का premium and current all the multiple policies का premium total किया, it is greater than 5 lakhs. Then all those policies in the current year whose premium along with the earlier exempt policies का premium. Today there are 3 policies maturing, earlier 2 policies are already matured, तो वो 2 का premium which is already matured, already exempt, वो 2 policies का premium plus out of the 3 today select those policies जिसका premium when you add with these 2 is less than equal to 5 lakhs, तो वो exempt होगा. Balance money will not be exempt, balance amount will be taxable. There are about 8 to 9 examples in the statutory update. In terms of theory, when you focus on the lecture, you might understand, but practically when you apply, you may not be able to understand it properly. So honestly, मैं request कर रहा हूँ ये 9 examples from the statutory update एकदम properly go through कर लेना. चलो, let's go ahead in the amendments. हाँ, ये भी देख लो एक, बराबर है. Even this is something that needs to be studied. Sorry. अपना ये जो eligible LIPs है, it does not cover unit linked insurance policy because there is a separate concept for separate provision created which you will study at CA final level, not at CA inter. Keyman insurance policy का amount is anyways taxable. Excluding these two, whatever is not exempt will be taxable as other sources. How do you find the taxable amount? When you receive money for the first time, A minus B is the formula. A is the amount received from the policy. Amount received, this will be including any bonus that the insurance company gives you. B, important, all premiums that you have paid till the date when you receive the money that has not been claimed as a deduction. That has not been claimed as a deduction under any other provision of the Act. If you paid a premium of 5,50,000, then every year under section 80C you would have taken a deduction of 1,50,000. So what was not allowed to you as a deduction is that 4 lakh rupees. Now suppose the policy had a life of 10 years, तो आपका B amount will be 4 lakhs into 10 years, 40 lakhs. And from this policy, if let's say you are getting 75 lakh rupees, so 75 lakhs minus 40 lakhs, it is that 35 lakh which is taxable as income from other sources. Just to give you a better picture, you have paid a premium of 550, so the total premium over 10 years that you have paid is actually 55 lakhs. But the formula does not say 75 minus 55 is taxable. Nah, ये 5,50,000 में से whatever deduction you have already taken under 80C, वो अब minus अब deduct नहीं होगा A minus B के formula में. That will not be deducted once again. You will deduct only that premium which previously has not been allowed as a deduction. Where the sum is received from a life insurance policy in a subsequent year. So C amount received in the subsequent year, D amount from all the premiums that you have paid till the date of receipt in the subsequent year. But same concept, a premium which has been claimed as a deduction under any other provision of Act, we will not include it here. And if that premium was covered in B amount or D amount in any earlier years, so we will not include that once again. Many a times what happens is, okay, from the policy, you get money in installments as survival benefit. 20% money will be paid after a certain period, then 5 years later another 20%, then 5 years later another 20%. So every time you are getting money, that money received will be C amount minus D. D amount will be all the premiums paid till that date. But if you have already subtracted some premium in the previous calculation, you will not subtract it once again. So this is the formula given for income from other sources. Okay, chalo, going ahead, two small deductions from gross total income, two small amendments. ये first वाला तो मैंने discuss कर लिया. Agnipath scheme, an individual who is enrolled, 80 CCH, subsection 1, your own contribution you will get a deduction, but that deduction will be allowed only if you go for opt-out regime. Default method is not allowed. If the contribution is made by the central government, so first of all you will take it as income from salaries. Salaries के chapter में section 17 में a small line is introduced. You are in the Agnipath scheme, so you are a central government employee basically. Contribution given by central government first include as salaries, then default regime as well as opt-out regime, subsection 2 में you will get a complete deduction. One वाला deduction, खुद के contribution का deduction is not allowed. Central government का contribution first include in salary, then you take a deduction. There is no threshold, there is no maximum amount, nothing. Pura contribution is allowed as a deduction. At the end of this Agnipath scheme, I think you are supposed to work for about 3 years or 5 years. I don't remember the scheme very accurately. But after the scheme ends and you have been trained in the Army, Navy, Air Force, that training is given to you. After that, from this Agniveer Corpus Fund, whatever money you receive, whatever amount you withdraw, fully exempt. If the amount is received by his nominee, दैट मीन्स इफ डेथ हैज अकर्ड एंड यू आर पेइंग द मनी टू द लीगल हेयर टू द नॉमिनी, तो नॉमिनी के लिए भी पूरा एग्जेम्प्ट होगा. एंड 80G, if you remember, section 80G gave you a deduction for all those donations that you are making. These three funds specifically, if you observe the names, these three funds have been removed from section 80G, meaning anybody making a donation henceforth to these three, you are not going to get a deduction. Basically, it's very easy to understand what the government is doing. They are trying to stop the money going into these funds. In the explanation given by the government has said these are the only three funds which are named after an individual. All other funds in section 80G are not named after a certain individual. They are named after the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister. Okay, on the face of it, the explanation is logical, acceptable. These three funds no longer will be covered under section 80G. Okay, last chapter where you have amendments, TDS and TCS. If you withdraw money from recognized provident fund and by chance that money becomes taxable, then yes, there is a section of TDS. The old provision was, this is the old provision. If the person who is receiving the money, the receiver, the payee, does not provide permanent account number to the payer, then instead of the rate of 10%, section's rate was becoming 42.744%. That is a maximum marginal rate. What is maximum marginal rate? As per the relevant budget, whatever is the highest tax rate applicable to an individual, highest tax rate applicable to individual 30%, highest surcharge rate 37%, health education cess 4%. So 30%, 37% का surcharge, 4% का health education cess is 42.744%. So the old provision was TDS will be done at 10%, but if you don't give PAN, 10% की जगह पे 42.744%. So if you don't give PAN, that 206AA section would become applicable. The formula given in 206AA is rate as per the section or 20%, whichever is higher. Section का rate is 10%, but before the amendment क्या था? 10% was becoming 42.744%. So effectively tax was being deducted at 42.744%. Now what has the government done? Government has deleted this line. This provision has been deleted, which means 10% will not become 42.744%, 10% will remain 10% only. That means the TDS which used to happen at 42.744 will now happen at 20%. So 206AA के हिसाब से 20% का tax will be deducted at source. Okay. Second amendment, online games. A new section has been introduced, 194BA. For normal winnings income, 194B is there. In section number, something worth noting, in section number 194B, TDS is done at 30%, but the threshold is 10,000. For online winnings, there is no threshold. TDS has to be done on the net winnings. Net winnings can be anything, greater than 10,000, less than 10,000, anything. 30% TDS rate applies. When do you have to deduct tax? You have to deduct tax, number one, at the time when the financial year ends, 31st of March. Basic rule. But before 31st March, if the person withdraws the money, so when you are doing this online gaming, they will open an account in your name called as user account. This user account, when you win, money will be put into the user account, credited. If you lose, so that much will be the loss which will be deducted from your user account. If from your user account you withdraw the money and in that withdrawal you have net winnings. So let's say the amount that you have withdrawn is 14,000, but the net winnings included in that is 9,000. 5,000 is your own money which you earlier deposited, and now you are taking your money back plus your winnings. So TDS will be done on 9,000 of course when there is withdrawal made. Also 31st March का TDS तो will still apply, but 31st March का TDS will apply on your remaining amount of net winnings. If there is no withdrawal made 31st March को whatever you are having in your account net winnings उस पे TDS होगा. If there is withdrawal made तो TDS will be done at the time of withdrawal and TDS will also be done on 31st March. Obviously the amount on which TDS has been done earlier will not be subject to TDS once again. 31st March को जो TDS होगा will be on the remaining net winnings only. Relating to this, a new rule has been inserted. CA inter level पे that rule is not to be studied. CA final level पे that rule has to be studied. But CBDT का एक circular आया. This circular is mentioned by ICAI in your statutory update also. I have also tried to put up that circular here in a slightly simple language. What if the amount of winnings is small, like 100 rupees, 50 rupees, 30 rupees? So the circular says TDS may not be done on the withdrawal if the winnings amount is 100 rupees per month or less, but on whatever amount you have not deducted tax, deduct that in a subsequent withdrawal when the winnings amount exceeds 100. So you won 30 rupees, you won 60 rupees, you won 20 rupees. The person who is responsible for doing TDS may not do TDS at the time of 30 and at the time of 60. But when you withdraw 30, 60, 20 and the entire amount, the net winnings crosses 100, so he may do TDS on that 30 and on that 60 later on when you withdraw the amount. But if there is no withdrawal, so 31st March ko you have to do TDS, that there is no escape to that. Suppose the user suffers that losses and the balance in the user account is not sufficient for TDS, then the deductor will pay the difference to the government. So government is basically giving a relaxation, saying that if it is very small an amount, so don't do TDS when the winnings are withdrawn, but later on when the amount exceeds 100 rupees, tab TDS kar lo. If it is in kind or partly in cash, partly in kind, but the cash part is less, पूरा kind में है, या cash plus kind है, but cash part is less and TDS amount is more, then the one who is paying, he will ensure that first TDS is complied with. So the one who has won, the deductee, they have to pay the tax to the government, show the proof, the challan has to be submitted, and only then the deductor will release the winnings that are in kind. If the winnings are in kind, ये तुम्हारा 194R के जैसा है, benefit of perquisite, same rules are applicable. If the winnings are in kind, how do you calculate 30% on that in kind amount? Fair market value. But if that online gaming company has purchased it so that it can give it to the user, uska purchase price. If the online gaming intermediary is manufacturing that item, so the price charged to the customer, normal market value, and these are the two rules. GST of course will not be included. TDS का तो ये general rule है, GST component पे there is never TDS done. Okay, the next amendment is simple सा amendment है, cash withdrawal वाला. Sorry, we know that the threshold is 1 crore. The small amendment introduced is, if the receiver is a cooperative society, तो 1 crore की जगह पे the threshold will be 3 crores. So if all the returns have been filed, no TDS up to 3 crore का cash withdrawn, above 3 crore tax deducted 2%. Last 3 साल का returns of income have to be filed. But if last 3 years का return is not filed on time, एक आध रिटर्न belated है, और मे बी 1 year का रिटर्न आउट ऑफ 3 इज नॉट फाइल्ड ओनली, तो वी नो कि 1 करोड़ का थ्रेशोल्ड बिकम्स 20 lakhs. सो नाउ हाउ डज द सेक्शन अप्लाई? नो टीडीएस अप टू अ विड्रॉल ऑफ 20 lakhs. देन 20 lakhs से लेके 3 करोड़ वो डिफरेंस पे 2%. and if the cash withdrawn goes above 3 crores, तो 2 crore 80, how did I get 2 crore 80? 3 crore minus 20 lakhs, उस पे 2%, and then whatever is above 3 crore, उस पे 5%. Okay, then what are the amendments in TCS? This is the last thing. TCS का ये दो सेक्शन 206CC and 206CCA, 2 minutes, we'll do it a little bit later. First, let us see the amendment in 206C1G, overseas remittance and tour package. Again a date, and this is an important section. At the starting of the lecture I said 4 amendments which are important. 115 BAC, life insurance policies, high premium 5 lakh के ऊपर वाला. The third amendment was that salaries वाला rent free accommodation, and the fourth one is this that I was mentioning, ये वाला. Effective 1st October they have increased the TCS rates. So the table put up is a summarized version. First, if the money is, if it is overseas tour package, let me start with the easiest one. If you are purchasing an overseas tour package, up to 30th of September 5% का tax will be collected. After, on or after 1st October, amount up to 7 lakhs, TCS will be 5%. The moment it goes above 7 lakhs, on the excess, TCS will be 20%. There is no threshold for triggering this. Earlier भी there was no threshold. If you are purchasing an overseas tour package of 10,000 तो भी TCS होता था. Now they are saying 5% up to 7 lakhs. If the overseas package is worth 10 lakhs, तो 7 lakhs पे 5% और extra 3 lakhs, 10 minus 7, उस पे 20%. Okay. Then, if you are sending money abroad, so मेरा serial number 1, 2 and 3 is the remittance made as per that LRS, liberalized remittance scheme. If you are remitting for the purpose of education, if you are remitting for the purpose of medical treatment, no TCS up to 7 lakhs. 7 lakh के ऊपर गया तो tax will be collected at 5%. इसमें there is no amendment introduced. The old provision was also like this. हाँ, if you are remitting for the purpose of education, but the money that you are remitting is out of a loan that you have taken from a ATE वाला financial institution. I took a loan from a ATE वाला financial institution and I am sending this money abroad for higher education. So up to 7 lakhs, no tax will be collected at source. Instead of 5%, it will become 0.5%. First 2 cases में there is no amendment introduced. पहले भी threshold 7 lakhs था, पहले भी percentage 5% and 0.5% था excess पे. If you are remitting for any other purpose, not for education, not for medical treatment, here comes the amendment. Up to 7 lakhs, no TCS, absolutely. But 7 lakh के ऊपर 5%, that is if you have remitted up to 30th September. The moment you remit on or after 1st October, like today we are sitting on 25th January 2024. Today if I am remitting and my remittance for the current year has already crossed 7 lakhs, so 20% tax will be collected. If I had remitted in August 2023, September 2023, so 5% tax was collected over and above 7 lakhs. In the statutory update, there are some very good questions which are obviously introduced, questions which are obviously part of the circular. Just a second. In the statutory update, ICAI has put up some questions from the circular. Those questions are also really very interesting. Does the limit of 7 lakh apply to education separate, medical treatment separate, and other purposes separate? No, obviously it does not. Does the 7 lakh limit apply up to 30th September separate and 7 lakh separate from 1st October? No, it does not. How do you do TDS? How do you do TCS? So those are also important questions which will actually help you in solving a question. The question will be framed as following remittances are made for education, for medical treatment, for other purpose. Some of them will be before 30th September, some of them will be after 30th September. Threshold कब क्रॉस हुआ, before हुआ या after हुआ. Accordingly your TCS rates will also keep on changing. So also ensure that from page number 15 to page number 18 you study those FAQs also. They will help you in practical sum solving. 206C1G is more on an MCQ basis. MCQ में वो काफी favorite है. Two amendments which I did not discuss relating to TCS. Now we can. The one who is going to receive the money is going to collect a tax. So if the payer of the money is supposed to submit permanent account number, if he does not submit permanent account number, very sorry, then like there is 206AA for TDS, there is 206CC for TCS. 206C1H, sale of those goods, double the original rate or 1% whichever is higher. For all other TCSs, double the original rate or 5% whichever is higher. What is the amendment? Sir, ये तो पहले से था. This is the amendment. We have just seen that the original rate can be 20% for remittance abroad, overseas package. Double of 20% will become 40%. But the clarification, by the rate of TCS shall not exceed 20%. So first you follow this formula. Find out whichever is higher. Then take that percentage, compare it with 20%. Whichever is lower will be my final TCS rate. Have a look. Twice the rate as per the section. Section का rate is 5% up to 30th of September. So twice is 10%. 10 or 5 whichever is higher, अच्छा 10%. It cannot cross 20. So my TCS rate is 10%. तो 10% आ गया. But then look at the second example. If my original rate is 20%, तो 20 का double 40. 40 or 5% whichever is higher 40. But now एक cap डाल दिया. नहीं, 40% tax will not be collected. Even if 206CC got attracted, maximum होगा 20% only. Similarly, if you are a non-filer of return of income, you've not filed your returns of income for the last year, then double the original rate or 5% whichever is higher. But if your original rate becomes 20%, तो 20 का double will be 40%. तो 40% or 5% whichever is higher, 40%. But then एक overall cap is introduced, maximum 20% whichever is lower. So eventually tax will be collected at 20%. The effect will be कि भाई whatever happens TCS will be 20% या उससे कम होगा, but TCS cannot exceed 20%. कोई भी TCS section ले लो, lease, motor vehicle, sale of specified goods, online remittance, sorry online नहीं, overseas remittance. Follow the formula, non-filer of return of income, non-submitting PAN, but 20% से ज्यादा TCS नहीं होगा. चलो, this is all from my side. Hope you understood the amendment along with the examples also. If you have any doubts, just put in the doubt in the comment section and I'll reply. Happy studying. See you. Tata. Bye bye.